¿Qué fue del amor que un día nos unió? Tengo nervios, me voy a morir. Para mí. Ok, ya estoy grabando en YouTube. Me parece maravilloso. Estoy bien, el audio aquí está bien. Solo falta que graben el Zoom. Confírmame porfa, Mari, en el chat. Sí, eh, me estás escuchando. En el chat de aquí de Zoom para probarlo de una vez. Juan Sebastián admitir, fue puta. Listo, uniendo. Hola, Sebas.
Listo. Ahora sí, ya le mandé el link.
Perfecto.
Espérate, estás pendiente. Vamos a ver cuándo responde. Igual pues de pronto si se le alarga un poquito la reunión, nosotros podemos esperando un ratico. A ver qué pasa.
El temor me invade.
De que no, ya relájese. Ya no hay tiempo. Ya esta vaina pasó.
No hay tiempo para la
Ahora
tristeza.
sí.
Has estado durmiendo bien, Sebas.
Parce, yo casi nunca duermo bien, weón. Yo tengo que
Uy, ahí mando la solicitud, va a entrar.
trasnochar demasiado. Ok, dale, invítalo.
Admitir.
Luego hablamos.
Ok.
Hi, Rich.
Hello.
Hello, Rich. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are
We are
you?
I'm pretty good,
really,
thank
really
you.
glad that you joined us. Okay, let us start recording. And Juanes, I'm going to introduce them in a while, but first, Juanes, start recording and tell me when you're ready.
Okay, I'm recording now. We are
And
ready.
Mariana too.
Yeah, she is recording now.
Okay, great. So, Rich, we're really, really glad that you can meet us. And for those who are watching this video, we are with Rich Redman. He participates in the creation of Dungeons and Dragons third edition and its game mechanics. So before we start, I want to tell you a little more about us. But we are here with Juanes, that is the founder of Etrian, the collective that I was telling you about.
Mhm.
Juanes, introduce yourself.
Hello, Rick. First of all, I want to thank you for joining us today. It is an honor for me to
You're
meet
welcome.
you, and I hope we can
It's not.
learn a lot from your infinite wisdom. Of course, it is. It is. You're a legend.
That's not true, but thank you.
No,
Yeah,
thank you.
of course.
Thank you for joining us.
You collaborate in the process that create the game that we used to play a lot of years ago. And I don't know if you haven't do your part with that construction, maybe we wouldn't even know about role playing games. So really thank you. Okay, I'm going to tell you a little about Etrian. Etrian is a collective, like I was telling you the other day, a collective of young people trying to rescue role playing games here in Medellin. Because I don't know if you're aware, but in Latin America, we didn't have many places where you can find anything about that.
Hmm.
And yeah, and as you know, role play is not like a fashion or not a very popular activity. So it's kind of hard to promote it and to find players and to build community around it. Yeah, that's what Etrian does. Etrian is working, and we are like one of a few attempts to incentivize this kind of games with a cultural and social understanding of the benefits of role playing, such as the growth in creativity and in social skills and narrative skills and
Sorry about that. I have dogs.
great. Okay,
Don't
so
worry,
yeah,
I love dogs.
no, that's okay. Mm. Don't worry. So yeah, what other skills do you think we might learn or improve by playing role game?
Um, well, for me, I know that uh, playing role-playing games, which I've done since the late 1970s, really
Wow,
uh, increased my interest in things like uh, history and writing, just language in general. Uh, that was a big part of it for me. And then when I worked on Dungeons and Dragons, I got to learn a lot about statistics specifically as a field of mathematics. And that was very, very useful for me.
great. Uh, I think I didn't do the proper introduction. So please tell us a little about yourself, about what you do.
Okay. Well, my name is Rich Redmond. I've been playing role-playing games since the late 1970s. I started with Dungeons and Dragons. Um, when I moved out to the Pacific Northwest, I ran sessions of a role-playing game called Shadowrun in the back of a store that was dedicated to board games and role-playing games and card games and so on. They had little space in the back of the store that sometimes they used for miniatures painting and sometimes they used for games. And while I was there, I got to know the manager of the store, and he became the first manager of the Wizards of the Coast customer service team. And
Okay.
he wanted me to be his
Wow.
assistant manager. So in 1994, I went over to Wizards of the Coast and started working there. And after about 5 years in customer service, I was very, I don't know if you know the expression burnt out. I
Yeah.
was very tired. I was very frustrated. Uh, I had done sort of everything there was to do, and I wasn't excited about the work anymore. And the work to release third edition was ramping up and really coming to a point where they needed more people to work on the products that they were doing. And I took a chance and interviewed with that team at Wizards of the Coast, and they brought me over, and I got to do that for about 2 years as
That's
a
great.
member of the design team. And I worked on a bunch of different games. I worked on Dungeons and Dragons and Star Wars and Marvel superheroes and a bunch of different D20 Modern, a bunch of different games. Um, and then Wizards of the Coast in September of 2001. We all know about the Twin Towers bombing in the United States in New
Yeah.
York.
The
Uh,
9/11.
it hurt the U.S. economy, and Wizards of the Coast had major layoffs, and I was among the people laid off.
Oh,
About
that's
4 months later, they hired me back to manage the Dungeons and Dragons license for uh, for the marketing department. So it's really funny to me. We talk about gaming in South America, but I used to
yeah.
be the person that all of the South American publishers and translators talked to get material from Wizards of the Coast.
Wow. That's
Okay.
great.
So that's what I was saying. Thank you. You did a great job. I got my books.
Me
All
too.
right, there you go.
Okay, so
And I,
I'm
I left
sure.
the company and I left the company in 2007.
Okay.
But I continued. I do, as you point out, you know my name. My name is part of the because of my work on D20 Modern, my name is part of the Open Gaming license in the back of
Mhm.
lots of different licensed products. So I still occasionally do freelance work for Lou Porter Jr. or Paizo or whoever thinks that my contribution will be valuable.
That's great. That's great. Please don't get too far away from that. Keep
It's
working.
I have been playing role-playing games for over 40 years at this point in my life, and so uh, it is a part of who. It's not just something that I do; it's a part of who I am.
Yeah, it's not a hobby anymore. I can get it. It's amazing. For me, yeah, and I was thinking that I was an old school. Okay, so I'm sure that all the people watching this video and all the people that are not, we all want to know how is Wizard of the Coast? How how is the experience of working there?
Um, I was there for, as you probably have already done the math, I was there a little over 13 years, and so it changed a lot while I was
Yeah.
there. In 1994, it was very much a startup. I was the 32nd employee at Wizards of the Coast in May, and by December we had 200 employees.
Wow.
Wow, that's
So huge growth, all
That's
because of
right.
Magic: The Gathering, of course, at that time. Um, and then in about 1997 or 1998, somewhere in there, Hasbro purchased Wizards of the Coast.
Mhm.
Um, Peter Adkison, who had been the president of the company, left shortly after that, and things got a lot more corporate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they got a lot more professional. We didn't have to guess how to get things done anymore. There were established ways of getting them done. Um, so it changed a lot. Uh, every game designer who has left Wizards of the Coast, including me, we all say the same thing. What we miss is the incredible collection of creative minds and creative talent that
Yeah,
we
I
got to
agree.
work with every day. I can write game material on my own, but the just having all of those people together, it was an amazing. Uh, you could always bounce ideas off of each other. You were always learning something new from each other, and that was a terrific experience.
Yeah, I can imagine the
And I'm still
feedback.
friends with most of the people I worked with. I haven't worked there, and I've now been gone from there almost as long as I worked there, and I'm still friends with a ton of the people I worked with because we liked each other and we like the games that we worked on. Yeah.
Tell me, this is a personal question, but I'm really curious about it. Tell me, how was like a brainstorming process? Like, I can imagine, but there are a lot of creative minds in the same place, all of them like
In
with all these
general,
ideas.
the brainstorming was there was two kinds of brainstorming. Um, we would do we would all get together in a conference room and try to figure out what products that we wanted to write over the course of the next year. And we would work with the marketing team and we would work with market research to try to figure out what we were going to write.
So before that, people like says like, "Hey, I have an idea for a game," and you put it in the table with the other ones, and after that you meet, or it was in the middle of the session.
A little of both.
Oh, great.
A little bit. You might be sitting in a session and somebody would make a suggestion and you would suddenly get inspired to
Great.
suggest another product with that. um, and then when you were actually writing the product, a lot of the brainstorming was very informal. You would, like, if I hit a roadblock or if I was struggling with an idea, I might go to my manager's cubicle or go to a friend's cubicle, and I would talk to them, and other people would overhear the conversation and join in, and you would get this kind of inspiration where the final idea was just this sort of collaborative effort
Great.
of all
Amazing.
of these people talking to you and discussing the idea.
Um, tell me a little more about that. How is the process of creating a new product, and how is the process since his conception to his release? What are
Um,
all
okay,
that?
so we would say we had sort of ideas of what products sold well because there was a huge amount of historical information that came from TSR, the original
Yeah.
creators
Yeah.
of Dungeons and Dragons, and many of their employees came to Seattle after we bought TSR.
Oh, great.
So they could sit down and say, okay, we want to do a Forgotten Realms campaign source book, and we want to do like Monsters of Faerun. So we'll do a monster book that goes with it, and then we'll do some other Forgotten Realm product, and that will be next year's Forgotten Realms run. And then people would be assigned to write different amounts. And we did a module unit, an MU is 32 pages
Okay.
at roughly 2,000 words, at roughly 1,000 to 2,000 words a page, depending on artwork and maps. And so you'd be assigned a certain number of module units to write for a product. You'd meet with whoever was the product manager or the design lead, and they would sort of set the sort of broad parameters, the boundaries that you should work within, and they would assign you specific things. For example, on D20 Modern, I got assigned to write the equipment chapter for D20, among other things, for that game, specifically because I had done some other equipment write-ups for Alternity, which was the sort of X-Files version of a game called Dark Matter.
Well,
So
I haven't heard
I
about
got
that.
assigned that, and so I sat down and with everybody else who was working on the product, got to sit down with Jeff Grubb and Charles Ryan and Bill Slavacek and all of these and I could keep going. Eric
Yeah.
Cagle worked on it. Really great people who are very close to me still, and I would talk to them about what do we expect players to do when they play this game, and then I'll write equipment that supports that. Like, there's no point in me spending hours and hours writing a bunch of guns if there's not going to be any shooting in the game.
Of course.
And of course, there is shooting in D20 Modern because it's an action movie kind of game. And I did spend hours and hours writing firearms. But we would talk about things like, we didn't just copy and modernize the equipment chapter from the player's handbook for Dungeons and Dragons. We pretty much started from scratch and said, what are we going to do in the game? What equipment supports this kind of play? And we would have regular meetings to talk about our progress and where the game was going. And I would take notes during the meetings to say, okay, we're going to write a game that has, one of the campaign worlds that we're going to include in the game has magic in it, so I'll need to have some equipment that supports that, that kind of thing.
Okay.
that was sort of long-winded, but did it answer your question?
No, yeah,
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 of
and
course.
it answers a lot of questions that I had around that because I was trying to talk you about the corporations. Because first of all, tell us what is game mechanics.
The project, the game
Game
mechanics
mechanics.
that you found.
So I mentioned that in September of 2001, Wizards of the Coast had huge layoffs. I mean, they laid off somewhere between two-thirds and three-quarters of everyone who worked at Wizards of the Coast.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a huge layoffs. But that meant that a lot of people who knew how to design games got laid off, including JD Weicker and Stan Brown and me. And so we said, Monty Cook was already out publishing his own games. We said, well, why don't we do it? And in English, the game mechanics is kind of a funny joke. It's a little bit of word play because uh, game mechanics are the rules of a game, but also a mechanic is somebody who fixes things, like fixes your
Okay.
car.
Okay.
So the game mechanics was a little bit of wordplay that we had. Um, and I stayed a part of that. At some point, we decided, or JD decided that he the game mechanics wanted was something that he wanted to be able to do uh, on his own. He wanted to sort of reserve that, so he bought back our interests in the company, and I was fine with that. I was back working at Wizards of the Coast, and Wizards of the Coast had part of my employment contract. Excuse me, was something called a non-compete agreement, and
Okay.
that meant that while I worked for Wizards of the Coast, I could not work for other game companies. And mostly when it was a small company like the Game Mechanics, they kind of ignored the non compete, but it was more comfortable for everyone if I only worked for Wizards of the Coast.
Okay.
And JD still, a buddy. And uh, if we weren't all quarantined, I would see Stan Brown probably once a month. Uh, they're good guys.
Great.
Stan is actually, by the way, if you ever get a chance to talk to Stan, Stan deserves his reputation as the nicest man in gaming.
We would love to talk with Sen. Maybe we can do a meeting with him. It will be amazing.
That would be great. Yeah.
Um, Rich, but okay, so this is a huge experience. What do you think? y- I mean, I have been playing since 15, so I have more than 15 years playing, but and I realized that there is this huge amount of changes between each version, but it was just that versions, because we still play in a table, gathering with our friends.
Yep.
But now, what do you think that will be this future of the role playing?
Well, I'm not sure I know anymore. I really appreciate how, with each edition of the game, the rules are more, a cohesive fabric.
Okay.
Everything works together and sort of flows logically, uh, and I really really appreciate that. Um, to me, the place where we need to have a breakthrough is teaching people how to dungeon master, right?
That's a
Like
great
there
point of
has
view.
never been a great product. There's tons of fantastic YouTube videos. Matthew Colville, for example, who used to work at Wizards of the Coast, who I uh, met a couple of times when he worked at Wizards of the Coast. He has a fantastic YouTube series on how to run the game. Um, but somebody is going to make a product that at some point that just teaches people how to run the game, how to be a dungeon master. And that's just good for the hobby because, when I worked at Wizards of the Coast, we knew every dungeon master represented probably 4 to 6 other people who would then be buying Wizards
Yeah.
of the Coast products to play in that game.
Yeah, I have many acquaintances that don't play anymore because they have a bad experience. It's amazing. We are doing,
It's very strange what can cause the bad experience. I've
yeah,
for example, I've
completely
never
different.
understood the whole, like, why people make it hard for women to play Dungeons and Dragons. I have
What?
3 sisters. I I've always gamed with my sisters, whether it was board games or card games or whatever. Um, when I started playing Dungeons and Dragons in high school, there were always a couple of women who were part of our friend circle who played the game with us. When I was in college, there were women who played. When I was serving in the army and we had games, there were women who played. When I, worked at Wizards of the Coast, there were all kinds of women gamers who were part of the company. I married one of them. Um, I never understood that, but I do hear from people from, you know, um, I hear from different women that they wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, but they had a hard time finding a group that didn't talk down to them. And so it's what causes a bad experience is difficult. And I'm glad to see, I see a movement now with a lot of companies, including Monte Cook Games, and to some extent Paizo, where people are stepping up and saying, we need to have some way, some mechanism to talk about uh, what do they call them? Veils and barriers, things that, like, if you, this is a subject matter that we don't enjoy. This is
Yeah.
subject matter that is flat out uh, like it causes a panic reaction or a rage reaction when the subject matter comes up. Um, I'll give you a silly example. One of the women that we used to work with at Wizards of the Coast had a terrible fear of clowns.
Yeah. Okay.
So you could never have clowns. Like, if there was a traveling circus or a fair in your Dungeons and Dragons game, there could not be clowns in it because it would just provoke this panic reaction for her.
Yeah. I
And
have
and
I have
because
a
we
girl
liked
with
her and we respected
arachnophobia.
her, we
Yep.
obeyed that.
Yeah. I think that's something that we make to be a little more conscious because I have a girl in one of my tables, and she was arachnophobic, and yeah,
Oh,
it was
great
it was
example.
really hard for her because we were in the middle of forest. I was I was narrating the story, and I just put a small spider, like
Sure,
a,
but even the
a tier
sight of a
one, but
spider miniature could
yeah,
set somebody
she
off.
freaked out. Yeah, that happened, and not only
Yep.
with women's, but yeah, there are a lot of topics to talk about that. I actually it's not the same here. I have been playing with a lot of women. It's not. I can figure it why because of the time or because of the different regions. Here is not that hard, but it's something that we surely have to keep in mind when we are building a table and when we are doing this research work for building a group. Mm,
I've
I like
become super conscious lately of how much my writing uh, is influenced by, I grew up in the United States at a time when pretty much the only kind of history you got taught was history from the point of view of the white colonial people coming from Northern Europe and colonizing America.
okay.
And now I'm learning much more about um, how Latin culture, just on my own now, I'm learning much more about how Latin culture, South American culture, Central American culture influenced the North America, how much, uh, you know, how involved African Americans and Asian Americans were, how much, the Native Americans contributed. So I try to bring all of more than just that Northern European, that very narrow viewpoint into the games that I write.
That's an amazing advice. We are building in a term. We had this I don't know, like DM school, and we are
Mhm.
doing a couple exercises. But I think we have to add these kind of things because we were just talking about how to build worlds, how to manage
The
to
table and
manage
the
in a proper
players.
way. Yeah. Do you have any other advice in for DMs?
Um, yeah, actually, I will. Uh, I'll give you two pieces of advice.
Great.
One piece is read. Read authors from other cultures. Read things that are not just fantasy. Uh, I say just fantasy. I love fantasy,
Yeah. We all
obviously,
do. Yeah.
but
We all
read,
do.
read mystery and read suspense and read horror and even read romance. And read books. I just finished reading a fantastic. Uh, well, there's only two books in the series so far, uh, from an African American author. Uh, they were really good and sparked a whole bunch of ideas for me. So read as widely as you can stand to. That's one piece of advice. Um, and another piece of advice I would give is uh, play.
Yeah, please.
Don't just be a DM, although it's great. Thank you for being a DM, but also play the game, understand the game from the player's experience, and think about what did you like about the game. If you had a session, if you played in a session and you really enjoyed it, think what made that session enjoyable and try to bring that into this what you bring that to your table when you run
Yeah,
a game.
to emulate it. Great. And what about the players?
Advice for players, you mean?
Yeah,
Yep.
Um,
because there are many.
my advice for players is usually um, remember that the goal is for everybody at the table to have fun. That includes the dungeon master. So, like when I play, I don't care whether my character is in the spotlight or not. I want to help the dungeon master tell a story while playing my character. I want to play my character in a way that helps the DM tell the story. Um, Help keep the other, try to keep the other players focused, try to keep the action of the game focused uh, on moving the story forward and not, wandering off on side quests or stall. I once ran a game where I was trying to give the players treasure, and they spent an hour figuring out how to approach the treasure.
Yeah, I know. I
Not
have
even
been
not
there.
even how to divide it up, just how to
Yeah.
approach it. And I just shook my head.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's just,
I
there's just so as a player, my advice to players is keep in mind that you want to keep up the tempo so that everybody stays interested. Do
Yeah.
what you can to keep the story moving. Uh, yeah, that's
Yeah,
my
because
advice.
okay. I have a final question. What advice would you give to all those who want to become in role playing game designers or content creators? Because we want
Do
to
it.
that's a great one.
yeah.
No, it's keep in mind, right? When I started playing, I would I could order games from where I saw a classified ad for the game in Dragon magazine, and I could get it, and what would come to me in the mail would be, an inch thick book of photocopied pages with a plastic spiral binding on it,
Yeah.
and that was all you could do. But now we have all kinds of digital distribution for your games. We have one bookshelf. We have all kinds of digital distribution from your games. The only thing stopping you from producing game material is you.
That's amazing.
You
Thank
can absolutely, you can write it. There are online workshops where you can get more experienced people to critique it. Paizo Publishing usually does contests every year and they would love to get submissions from outside, the United States. They would love to get other people's viewpoints in it.
Great.
So yeah, look for those opportunities and just drive and don't think you have to write something big and elaborate. Start out writing smaller things and expand from there.
Excellent.
It's like
Thank you, Rick.
the advice that the Ramones used to give to people who wanted to form rock bands was just go do it. Don't even learn how to play the instruments. Just go form a band and start making noise. That's my advice to anybody who wants to become a game designer. Just go do it and learn as you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's the most useful way and the most fun way to do it. I I will ask you at the end of this video to give me some links, some reference for the people that are watching us, so they can go to all these companies that you were telling us
Okay.
about the
All right.
contest and the kind of things. Is that okay with
Sure.
you? Okay. Well, did you still play? Are you keep playing?
Yes. I am playing in a 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons game. We're using Roll20 and Zoom. Right now we play every other week, and I also play in a 2nd edition Gamma World game.
Whoa! Second edition.
Which also meets every other week, and my wife is in that game.
And that's great. That's great. I always think when I had a child, I'm going to teach him a lot of role playing because I have learned it a lot, and it's a really useful tool. Okay, and so you play like as a player?
I do, yeah.
Wow, that's great. I will be really nervous about being your DM.
No,
Really.
see, again, because of my focus as a player is moving the story, helping you tell a fun story and keeping the action moving. I'm not a disruptive player, and I don't argue about the rules at the table. I just play the game.
Right. That's great.
Understood.
Okay, we in Etrian are trying to build, you know, we're building like this world, like something like Forgotten Realms, but there are people already playing on those tables, and something that happened in one table could affect the other players in another table. So the masters are going to, they have to synchronize often to keep the world moving. And even Juanes is writing this novel about the whole world, and it's like part of his work to gather all that information, all that material, and build something with it. What do you think about that? Do you have any thoughts about it?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Yeah.
About designing your own game world?
Yeah, about the world.
The campaign setting.
Okay. So there's a style of play, and I'm trying to remember the exact name for it now. Although I don't think it actually. Never mind. Doesn't matter. But it's a style of play where it's a very open world style of play, and it sounds a lot like what you're describing to me here, and I'm fascinated. I've never been part of that style of a game, but I'm fascinated to hear more about it. And I hope you'll keep telling me about it, Juan.
Yeah, because the idea behind that is that once you get out of your table, you know, the story ends there. You cannot you can tell your friends, you can maybe try to recreate that story, but it's not the same. In this case, it's I can actually tell other people about what happened, like in my region, and understand that there are things happen on the other side, and I can actually travel there and change my DM and start an adventure with them. You know, that kind of things. It's really hard to do it, and yeah, we have some issues with it, but we are trying to maintain that experience and to make people able to communicate talking about the same world, not just the same game mechanic, not just
The same story
yeah
and
the same
world.
book, but yeah the whole experience, and that other people can share that experience. Um, Tell us a little more about what do you know. How is there any kind of a collective space or groups that are doing something like us? I mean, promoting role-playing games in US, non-profit.
Well, when you throw nonprofit in there,
Yeah, because most of the places are like a place where you can buy things and you can play, but we're collective of people that are just trying to promote role-playing games. Is there any kind of organization that do that that we can
Contact in the
contact
future.
or yeah?
um, the closest thing that I can think of uh, would be something like, Wizards of the Coast and Paizo both do, um, like Paizo does the Pathfinder Society, and
Mhm.
Wizards of the Coast does D&D Encounters, where there are weekly short games that uh, it will be held at game stores, will be held in people's houses, will be held in restaurants, and they're all sort of sharing play. And then I know annually Paizo they have a convention called PaizoCon. It's not happening this year.
Okay.
Um, but PaizoCon, they will have, over the course of a weekend, they will have a long series of adventures that will literally change the campaign world for the next year.
Great. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Okay. I have another question. My last one. Um, you know, okay, we are in
Sorry,
quarantine.
that's one of our cats. Sorry
No,
about
No
that
worry.
background
don't
noise.
worry. You know that I have one too.
Yes.
It's okay. There are many people complaining about how this virtuality lacks some element, some spirit in this quarantine. Like it's not
Yes.
the same to play, is using virtual tools. What do you think about that?
Um,
What about your experience with Roll20? I just
um,
started last week, and I think it's a really hard work.
um, it is work, but it's preparing a game. Any dungeon master, as you all know,
Yeah,
any dungeon master will tell you prepping for a game is work. It's just doing it a different way. And, we've, like me, right? I've been a dungeon master for 40-ish years. I have shortcuts for doing things with pen and paper that I'm just used to. And now I have to relearn that for digital. And that's fine. I love, I'm going to stop learning when I die. I want to learn and grow for the rest of my life. Um, so that's important. One thing that I did with the fifth edition game, we set up a Facebook group, for the players and the DM. And I started using it to say, uh, hey, this is what my character is like, and give myself, and this is sort of my background, both in my life and in gaming, and encourage that discussion among the players that normally you would have that sort of spontaneously and organically around the table.
Yeah.
But I recognized that that wasn't happening, and I instigated it, reached out and started it myself. So that is something, if you're missing something out of the online game experience, think about that for a little while. Sort of identify what it is that you're missing, and then think if there's some other mechanism for getting that experience.
Yeah, we're
Like
doing
for the
something.
examples I used about my Facebook experience.
Yeah, I didn't think about it, but yeah, we create a WhatsApp, another WhatsApp group to just to start socializing
Yeah, or
when we are
Discord or
out of
whatever
the,
you want to use.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also find out something that it was amazing for me, and that is, I don't know how my DM does that, but he changed his voice in Discord. We're using Discord, but he changed his voice all the time with these
Oh
voice
wow.
filters, and it's really really amazing because he puts female voices, known voices, the evil darkness, and that kind of things, and it feels really really great because when he's telling us something, he uses his own voice, but each NPC has a different one, and we are able to identify whom are we talking with just because of that, and that's something that I I just haven't experienced before. So I think maybe we can explore a little more about the tools that we can have now. Yeah, it's amazing advice.
I'm glad you. I'm glad it's
Yeah,
you know is valuable to you.
yeah, it's a
It's
new,
very
it's
important.
a completely new, different experience. Of course, I prefer the presentiality, but you know, we do what we can. Mm, Juanes, do you have any other question?
No, no for now. I think we are
Okay,
done for now. For
Rich,
now.
for now. Rich, thank you, really, really thank you for joining us. It was an amazing experience to talk with you about all this. I have a lot of questions that I will ask you in the future, and I will, and I see that you already sent me the links, and I will be keeping you in contact to talk about these kind of things and to see what else can we improve to keep doing it what we are doing right now.
Uh, Role playing games have given me a lot of joy in my life. Uh, they've helped me meet some wonderful friends through the years. Uh, so I'm always happy to talk about it, and it was a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you.
The pleasure was
Thank you.
ours. I want to thank you
Thank you.
again for joining us today, and I hope to see you soon here with us, Rick.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks. See you later.
See ya.